Selecting an American President, Part B. Now, Part A was more of the informal process about primaries and political parties. This video lecture is going to be more about what the Constitution says about picking our president, and it is a little more confusing. I should say before we move on, oh, and by the way, hopefully you remember the pancake and syrup analogy and helping you remember who's a conservative and who's a liberal. But I should say about these primaries, we do the same thing for senators and representatives and governors. We live in a two-party system, and when we're electing a governor, we have primaries. When we are electing a senator, we have primaries. You also know that we have elections every year. It's just every other year we vote for people in Congress, and every few years we vote for a senator, maybe in 2 years, but then it may be another 4 years, or it just depends on what state you live in. And of course, we vote for president every 4 years. But we have an election year every year. Sometimes we just vote for mayor or city council or school board, but every November we have elections. It's just presidential elections are every 4 years. And those years we're voting on members of Congress and governor, we have primaries, but we were just talking about the primaries for running for president. But it's basically the same thing. You have to beat out everybody in your party to be the last Republican and last Democrat standing come November for the election. Now, if you're running for governor or senators, then you win in November. You win by the popular vote. But if you're running for president, according to our Constitution, people voting across the country aren't really the ones that are going to decide whether or not you're president. So, for this to really click in your brain, we have to consider everything that we've learned. The first thing is there's not a national election. Every state does their own election on the same day in November. And it's the states that are in charge of these electors. So every state will have electors, which are just people who will meet in December, the next month, and they will look at the results of what happened in November. So let's just take the state of Tennessee. In November, the people of Tennessee will vote, and let's just say that Joe Biden gets more votes than his opponent in Tennessee. Well, in December, the electors for Tennessee, who are Democrat, will go to the state capitol in Nashville, and they will cast their votes the way that the people voted the month before. That will happen in every state capital across the country at noon during that time zone that they're in. So in Nashville, they will meet. In Santa Fe, they will meet. In Helena, they will meet. In Sacramento, they will meet. In Juneau, Alaska, they will meet. In Honolulu, Hawaii, they will meet. In Albany, New York, they will meet. Because it's each state having an election. Then those results will be sent off to the Congress, where the vice president, as president of the Senate, will open them and count those electors to determine who the new president will be. Now, most often we already know because we know what will happen in November and that the electors will do what happens in November. But that's not really what the founding fathers had in mind. They thought that these electors would actually be the ones really trying to decide the president because they were smart, and really that's what a college is, right? It's smart people. So let's take a moment and dig into this a little bit deeper, and hopefully in the next 10 minutes you'll be way smarter at it than you are now. So the Electoral College, all right, is mentioned in the Constitution in Article 2 explaining how we get the president. The Constitution tells us what the Electoral College will be. All right, but think about it, right? The electoral just means, voting. These are the people that vote. College, think about what a college is. It doesn't necessarily have to be a place like Ohio State or Miami, right? It is really a group of people. We could knock down all the buildings at Ohio State and the professors could have college in parks around the state. It doesn't matter where they meet. It's smart people meeting. So the Electoral College is a group of men and women who vote for president and vice president in December of the election year in the state capitals across the country. Okay, so the Constitution sets up a system where these people who are really smart about government. Now, typically, these electors, that's what we'll call them, these electors, are people. They have been maybe a governor of the state at one time, or maybe they served as a mayor. They're just really smart. They can't be someone who's serving now, but they can be someone who has experience in government, who was like, yeah, the people of Tennessee voted for President Biden. We think they know what they're talking about. We agree. We are voting for Joe Biden. Okay, so it's just a group of people. Maybe it's helpful to just kind of see them, right? This is the electors meeting in Columbus. So electoral college are just people. They come and they cast their votes. So let's talk about the electoral number, because every state has an electoral number. Electoral number for each state is basically its number of people in Congress. So its number of reps plus its senators gives you an electoral number. Now we know every state has 2 senators, so that's easy, but the reps is based on population. So a state like Ohio, well, we have 16 reps and we have 2 senators like every other state. So that means our electoral number is 18. So we have 18 people. So on this screen, Donald Trump won in 2020 Ohio. He didn't win the presidency, but he won Ohio. So in December, the Republican electors came to Columbus and they cast their votes for Donald Trump. And they signed it on a fancy piece of paper and they sent it off. So electors are just people. So Ohio ran an election, Donald Trump won. The next month, the electors show up, they vote for Donald Trump because that's what the people of Ohio said to do. Now, they don't necessarily technically have to do that, but many states require them to. And given today's information that we know about candidates, most people are pretty informed. So when they vote, they're just basically doing what happened in November. Once in a while, you might get one of these people, maybe might vote for someone else, but generally, they'll vote for who the people voted for in November. Ohio would say, okay, we had our election, we're going to send off our results. Let's maybe look at it this way. So electoral number for each state is the reps plus senators. So it's 435 members of the House of Representatives plus 100 senators. That total number of congressmen and women is 535. That's how many voting members there are in Congress. Plus, according to the 23rd Amendment, Washington, D.C. has 3 electors. So, really what we're talking about is 538 total electors, total people across the country who will pick the president. So, Arizona has electors, New York has electors, Georgia has electors. You add them all up, plus Washington, D.C.'s 3 electors, you get 538 of all of these electors when you add all of them together. Now, the Constitution says if you're going to be elected president, you have to get a majority of the electors. So what that means is you take 538, divide it by 2, gives you 269. You got to get one more than that. That's because 269 is half. One more than that is 270. So to be elected president, you have to get 270 electors to vote for you. It might be helpful to pause the video, look at the screen, study a little bit. So this is what these electors look like, right? These are people, and there are 538 of them when you add up all the states. You win states with bigger populations, you get more of these people to vote for you. You win Wyoming, you get 3 of these people to vote for you. You win Ohio, you get 18 of these people to vote for you. And of course, you need to get 270. So if you win Ohio, that's 18, and Wyoming, that's 3. Now you have 21. But how many do you need to get? 270. So of course you want to win big states. You want to win states like, hopefully in your head you're thinking California, New York, Florida, Texas, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan. So you want to win the states that have the most people, but you can't forget about the little states because you might need them to get to 270. So when these electors gather in Ohio, for example, this is what they vote. They just write it on a fancy piece of paper. They sign their name as that they're voting for whomever they were voting for. So in this case, President Trump, it was sent off then to the Senate, where the joint session of Congress, where the vice president, as president of the Senate, would read these and announce who the next president would be. Let's take another look at maybe here another state, Arizona. And maybe you can see this a little clearer. This is from the election of 2012. The state of Arizona's electors voted that year that because the state of Arizona voted for Mitt Romney in 2012, even though he didn't win the election, he didn't get to 270, but he did get the 11 votes of Arizona that year. So this is what it looks like, a fancy ballot. Every state does this. They send it off to the Congress. This happens in December. These are the people that actually vote for president. The signatures of these people. So if we look at an electoral map, right, you can see that West Virginia, for example, has 5. So that tells me that they have 2 senators and 3 representatives to give us a number of 5. Texas has 2 senators, so that means it has 36 representatives. Big population. California has 55. So that means it has 2 senators, so 53 reps. Now, of course, this map will change because they just counted all the people in our country in 2020 during a census, right? That's what the Constitution requires, that every 10 years we count our population. So soon, some of these numbers will shift around. So if Ohio lost population, we might lose a representative in the House of Representatives. Therefore, our electoral number will go down. But states like Texas or New Mexico or Arizona or Florida, they may go up. So again, you add all of these numbers and you get 538 if you're adding Washington, D.C. And then you divide it by 2, 269 plus 1 to give you one more than half. Will give you the 270. Now, in case you're wondering, Nebraska and Maine, they have a system where they give some electors to a candidate depending on how much of the percentage of the population they win. So it's just a little bit more confusing on those states. But for most states, for example, Minnesota, it's all or nothing. If Joe Biden wins Minnesota in November, the people of Minnesota vote for Joe Biden, then Joe Biden gets all of Minnesota's 10 electoral votes. These electors, there are 10 people who gather in the state capitol. They send their votes down to Washington, D.C. So it's easy to see which states you would want to campaign hardest in, but you can't forget about these little states. All right, that's what the founding fathers put this system in for. And now it's easy to say we just want to count the population, whoever gets the most votes wins. But again, then you would have no candidate that would ever campaign in some of these smaller states. They would spend all their time where all the people are: California, Texas, Florida, New York. This system is not perfect, right? The Constitution isn't perfect, but it does give these smaller states a say in picking presidents. And that's how it has been. Very close elections, like in the year 2000, it was very close. And these small states had a say in it. So again, pause on this if you need to see how we get to this number. But watch this video again if you need to come up with a way to remember it. I say watch it a couple times.